Good morning. In this video, I'll be talking about Child Status Protection Act. How do we calculate the age of the children at the time the application was filed from the time to approval? Because we've been having a lot of questions, especially with those I-130 petitions. And then at the end, I'll give some tips to H4, the dependent of H1B visa holders, because really they don't have any type of child status protection as far as their kids are concerned. Bijoux Ngwanda here, immigration lawyer in the DC metropolitan area. If you're new to my channel, please go ahead and subscribe. If you are not new, welcome back, and please don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my video. And if you enjoy those type of content, okay, please don't forget to like, share, and comment below, especially if I don't cite one of your category, because I am really focusing on a particular type of petitions. Okay, let's get right into it. Child Status Protection Act. It's because they wanted to protect the age of the children, because some children were aging out, meaning that they were getting older, and then the petition has not been approved. They're already getting older. So how can we protect that? They came up with this idea of Child Status Protection Act. Let's start with refugee. How do you calculate the age of your child from the date you file your petition to the date of approval? How do you know that your child is still qualified to get into the US? You know it by the time you file your petition, which is the date of your interview. For refugee, the date of the interview, that's the date they will go with. Say that on the date of your interview, your child was under 21 years old. That child age has froze. So basically, the child will not age out. On one condition, the child must remain unmarried, not married, because if you get married, then you're no longer a child, really. The child remain unmarried. However, if the child so let's say the child get here already, and then the child get married after already getting here, the child will not be disqualified for green card. Okay, that's the distinction between refugee and asylees people, because there is a little bit difference on that too. Okay, that for refugee. If you miss it, again, go back. So let's talk about asylees, people who have applied for asylum and then they put their children name on the application. How do you determine the aging out of the child, whether the child is still qualified or not? The age of the child is determined on the date you file your application, meaning the date USCIS actually receive your application. That's the date you will go with. If your child is underage, meaning under 21 years old, whether your application takes 10 years to get approved, the child age has froze. So basically, the child will not age out as long as the child remain unmarried. And let's say the child get here, the child gets married, that child will be disqualified for green card. That's the difference between a refugee and asylees people. Okay, so moving on to VAWA self-petitioning. How do you calculate? VAWA people, you calculate at the time you file your petition, basically at the time USCIS receive your petition. That's the age you will go with. And then at that time you file your petition, the form I-360, if your child was underage, meaning under 21 years old, that child will not age out until the petition get approved. Let's say the petition get approved 2 years later, the child is already 25, so the child will still be counted as a child as long as the child remain unmarried, not married. Okay, so let's move on with employment-based preferences or DV lotteries winners. How do you calculate the age of your children? Let's say you're the parent who won the lottery and you put the names of your children on your application, and now the visa becomes available, and let's say the child is already past 21. How are you going to calculate to know whether the child is qualified or not? It says here that the age is calculated by subtracting the number of days your petition was pending from your age on the date an immigrant visa becomes available to you. However, again, you must remain unmarried in order to qualify, not getting married in order to qualify. So they gave a specific example. Let's say you are 20 years old and 4 months when an immigrant visa becomes available to you. Your petition was pending for 6 months, so they will calculate 21 years and 4 months minus 6 months equal 20 years and 10 months, meaning you are still under 21. So you are still going to be qualified. This specific example, I'm going to leave it in the description box so you can read it for yourself. And now let's move on. Let's talk about some people who are already here. They got the green card. They petitioned for the children when they were lawful permanent resident, and then later on they became a U.S. citizen. How do you calculate? It says pretty much if you are lawful permanent resident parent, you file a form I-130 for you. They file a form I-130 for you, the child, and then later on your parent became U.S. citizen before you turn 21 years old. So that's when they will calculate the day your parent become a U.S. citizen. If you were under 21 years old, you are still qualified under that petition, meaning you will get your visa approval, whatever petition they were filing for you, you will get the approval, because the time your parent became U.S. citizen, you were underage, you were under 21 years. So the age, you did not age out. So the age was forced. Okay? So that's about it for those people. I know K2, K4, you guys, children are not protected under this Child Status Protection Act. They are not protected. If you have a specific question, just leave the comment so I can find out about your specific criteria. But those are the ones that I wanted to talk about, especially the popular one is Refugee, Asylum, and VAWA petitioner, and then the visa, the DV lottery visa, and then the employment-based preferences. So those are the ones I talked about. But now let's give some tips to H4 children, the dependent of H1B visa. Okay, those people, when they get here, they are sponsored by an employer, and then they get here in the US and start working, and later on they transition to either EB2 visa or EB3 visa. Mostly people from India and China. They get those are the people who, most of them get those H1B visa, okay, and they get here with the family, the dependents, so who are on H4 visa. But unfortunately, by the time they get the green card, remember the transition to either to EB2 or either to EB3 visa, they get their green card. By the time they do all those steps, their kids have age out, so the kids are no longer 21 years old, so they cannot consider children for the parent to be able to petition for them as well to change their status, so they're stuck with that invalid status in a way, really, because now the parent are on a different status and you are age out. You're no longer considered a child because you're no longer under 21 years old. So what are you gonna do? So you're stuck there, and the parents are really stressed out about those things. And Biden said that Biden, again, the 46th president of the United States, in his new reform bill, they say that they are going to solve this problem, this aging out problem for those age 4 dependent. But the thing is, we haven't gotten there yet. So what are the possible solutions? Some people, it's not for everybody. Don't come after me in the comments. It's not for everybody. Some parents, they choose to change their kids' status to the student visa, international student. But remember, if the child has been here already living in the US, they will no longer be considered international student, even though they will have F1 visa. But the fees, the school fees, you can negotiate with the school to pay the resident type of fees, because the kids, let's say you've been living in a particular state, let's say you've been living in Maryland for 4 years, and by the time your kids has aged out, and now you are no longer able to petition for them because you have changed your status, and now you're changing them to the student visa. What can you do to make those fees a little less than the international student fees? So you're gonna have to negotiate with the school and tell them that you have been here, so the kid has to have the school fees as a resident, because they've been living in the state for example, I said 4 years. So that's a thing that you can work on, really, to get that student fees lesser, okay? So, and then some parents, they do the G1 visa, which is another form of student visa exchange for scholars and stuff, things like that. Some people do H1B visa, like the kids, it becomes again an H1B visa, meaning that they get sponsored by another employer. So if they're lucky, they just get the H1B visa, and later on they will transition to a green card. That's possible as well. Family petitions, sometimes the kids just get married and then they can, husband or wife will petition for them. And some parents have really money, they can do investor visas for their children. And some people just go with humanitarian visa, which is the asylum. They just apply for asylum and something around those lines, okay? That was it for today, and I just wanted to talk about those aging out, because we have received a lot of questions and sometimes it gets really confusing, especially with those popular petitions: asylum, refugee, VAWA, green card, US citizen. How do you determine the age of your child? I've talked about it. If you miss anything, please go back and watch. If you need a consultation, email me. I'm gonna leave the email here and on the screen. Of course, you can call as well, but email is best, just because I can respond to you right away. And again, it was just what it was for today, really. And we are still waiting for the Biden reform, remember, to be introduced this week, probably by the end of the week. And I'll come right back with more. Okay, Bijoux Ngwanda, immigration lawyer in the DC metropolitan area. And this was US Immigration. Bye-bye.